Yo, what's up, guys? I'm gonna take my time on this video. As you can see by the title, I'm gonna be discussing some things that Tucker Carlson said, and I'm gonna take my time. So this video will be drawn out. I'm not gonna be talking as fast as I normally talk, but it is what it is. Don't watch the damn video if you don't like me taking my time. So, for those that don't know, I think Tucker Carlson gets it wrong in a lot of different areas, but I don't absolutely hate him. I have been interviewed by Tucker Carlson. He's a, polite guy. I don't even think his intentions are always bad, and I can even look to some of the things that he does say that are specifically against the left. Hold on, let me turn off this fan. That are like specifically against the left that are good. However, he got it dangerously wrong on this subject matter. Now, for those that don't know, Tucker Carlson was recently in this interview with Ben Shapiro, and he was talking about the trucking industry and things of the likes, and he got it dangerously wrong. It was so economically illiterate that he said some of the things, but in short, let me break down the story. So Shapiro essentially asked him if he's in favor of restrictions in the trucking industry, essentially artificially really propping up the industry. And Tucker says, yeah, absolutely, he's for that. If he was president, he would have these sorts of restrictions in a heartbeat. And he also says that he's not allowing any automated trucks at all, no automated driving or anything like that on the roads at all. His excuse is that driving for a living is a common job, and eliminating their jobs in a 10, 5, or even a 30-year span has too much, of a social cost, that is. He says that by doing this, you'll have 10 million dead families, and it'll wreck the country. He tries to further this excuse by saying that capitalism isn't a religion, though he thinks it's like the best system. I mean, he even goes so far as to, say that he'll lie. He'd lie to the public, say like cars are dangerous or whatever, just to artificially prop up this industry. Now, this is, again, incredibly stupid, and I didn't really expect this sort of stupidity from an economic standpoint from Tucker Carlson. And I'm actually, I can understand, because maybe even Ben Shapiro doesn't understand some of the arguments that I'm about to make or present, because he didn't grill him like he should have. But it also says that from a capitalist standpoint, he's not adopting any sort of principle. He's not living by any sort of ethics in that regards. I think the whole calling it religion is just an excuse to really say that I would adopt a socialist policy, which this is, if that sort of protects this sort of economic illiteracy that I have. So let's go through some of these points and why and how he really got some of this stuff wrong. First and foremost, driving wouldn't be automated immediately, or even exclusively sort of automated, which he assumes that it would be in the event that automation is allowed. People will prefer other methods to driving, or more so automated driving. They may still want the manual, right? And that leads me to the next point, in the sense that the fact that he went from 5 years to 30 years, that's a big gap, right? A lot can happen in 30 years, right? 30 years is a long time, but he says the social costs are just, we can't bear it, right? It will wreck everything. In 30 years, people, there's somebody that'll be driving that isn't even born yet. There's people that are driving right now. In 30 years, they will no longer be driving because they'd be too old to drive. 30 years is a long time. Just imagine right now, 30 years, and I'm under 30. Just imagine the technological advancements that we've had over that span of 30 freaking years. Let's think about it. internet, how much faster it's gotten, how it wasn't even really a thing that a lot of people had. Excuse me. Just think about that. But he's operating, Tucker that is, Carlson's operating on this idea that 30 years just, bam, social costs, everybody's just gonna be a driver, right? Nobody will make an adjustment. And this is the sort of position that a lot of socialists and leftists take, that is so economically stupid, because people aren't robots, bro. People make adjustments based on the markets they have now, they will in the next 5 years, they will next year. We look at how fast Amazon, for example, just kind of came out of nowhere and grew, or Netflix. Or you can name off just so many different things. But think about how those sort of came out of nowhere, and the markets just had to adjust based on that. That's what happens, right? People aren't robots. They won't just go into it. Like, he's speaking as if driving is just this, or driving for a living, that is. It's just something that just has to happen, right? And in the, all these people, is a set number of people that are going to be doing this, and that aren't even born yet, right? As if that's just what the market just has to dictate, right? And that's just not the case. This is why automation should be allowed instead of artificially propping up the industry. Nobody's owed that, bro. Nobody's owed this artificial propping of an industry. I, for example, have worked in information technology. And that is the industry that almost, damn, I can even imagine working 5 years ago, how much has changed. You got to update your resume constantly. You have to constantly learn new things. Technology gets better. Things get automated. People's jobs get phased out. New jobs get created because of the innovation, because of the automation. And people make adjustments based on that. Some people leave the information technology industry. Some people, like myself, just kept having to get more and more knowledgeable on what was happening, so I can become a value in the market. And that's what individuals do. They make adjustments. People go in and out of, and I don't know why he acts as if people just owe this, because people go in and out of these industries all the time. On a yearly basis, people just go, daily basis, go in and out of different industries, move in and out of different industries. They're not owed artificial propping up. By his logic, like you mentioned some of the things like farming, right? And the automation over the years that happened there, and how a lot of people's jobs obviously got phased out. A lot of jobs were created. He would have been the guy still advocating that they did things the old school way. Or you mentioned something like cars, horses, right? People were getting their mail, driving around on horses and whatnot, delivering mail, delivering different things, going to, travel, stuff like that. And then you get something like a car, which completely changed the game. And all those people that were riding those damn horses got phased out. They could either make the adjustment, or they could just say, all right, well, all I know how to do is drive a horse. Like, come on, people. People make adjustments. They aren't robots. And the trucking industry is no different from any other industry that has existed historically. People make adjustments. They're not robots. Which is why him mentioning 10 million being dead is so crazy. Because it assumes that people will stand there and do nothing in the event that their job is gone, no longer exists. That specific job doesn't exist because there's no longer a need for it. Now, going back to my point, he has no way of predicting that. He's acting like, well, automation is just, bam, it's just going to be a thing. Like automated driving for a living, right? I want to deliver pizza. Papa John's owns an automated car. They just, bam, send it to you, and that's it, right? Nobody's driving that car, anything like that. There's a lot that we have to learn, and the industry hasn't learned about trucking or driving, essentially automated driving, driverless cars and stuff like that, right? There's a lot of stuff that hasn't learned, safety measures, all of that stuff. We're not there yet, right? So that would take some time to work out, which is why you need that sort of competition to work out, because in the end, the more efficient, more cost-effective ideas are going to win. But this whole idea that 10 million people are going to just be dead is just criminally really insane that he would even really mention that. Because it assumes that people just not do anything. But with automation comes no jobs, which is what he fails to mention. It always has. Someone has to make the automated cars, loads these cars or trucks, repair them, right? And with innovation comes more opportunity. And these are opportunities that he can't imagine, nor that I can imagine, if the idea is that automated driving is more efficient and more cost effective. There are so many different opportunities for different individuals that we just can't even imagine. And there are going to be new jobs that are being created because of this. And what I mean by that, I mean like literally, you cannot imagine this stuff. You have no idea what's going to happen because you can't predict that. Like, for example, let's assume that becomes the norm, automated, driving, and that is driverless sort of cars, trucks, stuff like that. And these become cheaper. People have more access to them. So people like maybe myself maybe have access to this. And from a delivery standpoint, in terms of a business, an opportunity was created for me that previously was not there, right? And that's just using an example. So many different things that we just can't predict because automation leads to more innovation, or not necessarily automation leads to the innovation. I'm saying that the innovation, which maybe automation comes from that innovation, creates more opportunity. It's not just gonna sit there, and that's what he fails to mention, fails to even understand, it seems like Tucker Carlson is, in the efficiency. And the idea, excuse me, the idea is that this is more, the only reason why people would do this, businesses and whatnot would do this, because it's more efficient. Goods are going to be transported more faster, safer. And people can do other things really instead of driving because of that. So people are going to be able to spend time instead of commuting, be it maybe even by themselves. And this isn't just with drive. Maybe you're driving to work, right? Not necessarily driving for work, driving to work, for example. Like, if you think about it, think about that. If that's the norm, right? That becomes a norm. Something happened in which it was more cost effective and more efficient. So this in turn, again, allows other people to do other things instead of driving, which again opens up opportunities. But it also lowers transportation costs because of that, because transportation is so automated, it's so normal, we have more access to it, goods get cheaper. Because a lot of what you pay in terms of these goods are to even get the damn goods, to get it shipped to you. So even just on that idea alone, the consumer has more cheaper goods in a sense. And this is because the economy is not this fixed pie, right? Cost of living changes with innovation. And I don't think he understands that. People, like, they get cheaper with alternatives, right? And that's why we need that sort of competition. So people's money stretches longer, the money stretches longer with innovation. So if you look at luxury goods, you look at phones, cell phones. Back in the day, you had to be of an elite tier, elite class to get a cell phone. Nowadays, you can just get a cell phone for relatively cheap. And again, just using that as an example. Things that only the rich and powerful, cars, hell, is another thing. People that only the rich and powerful had access to. We had access to it. Made our jobs easier, made our jobs, more lives easier, made our living standards really essentially go up. Due to the innovation. This is, again, these are things that we can't predict, but have to be considered if you are going to fear automation. It's the automation fear that he has that has been projected for years on end. Like years, like legitimately years. People have feared automation. But last but not least, Tucker not only got it wrong from an economic standpoint, as I just mentioned, but from a principle standpoint. I think what he said about capitalism is it's just a bad idea, right? Because what you're saying is that you have no principles, you have no ethics that you're really standing on. More so the principle. You don't have no principles that you're really legitimately standing on. You just, oh, well, it's the best right now. The idea that I think is the best. And capitalism libertarianism is much more than that. But he's saying that, well, it's not the best, or it's the best, but it's not a religion. That's his excuse. Basically saying, well, I don't have a principle to stand on. And even though I know this may go against something I may argue, I want an excuse to adopt a leftist socialist policy. So I'm going to adopt that. And by saying that it's not a religion, you know, dramatizing it like, oh, well, it's not a religion. Capitalism, no shit. It's not a religion. Nobody suggested that it would. Capitalism is simply the private ownership of goods and services and the free and voluntary exchange of those private goods and services. And from a libertarian standpoint, that's why we adopt that, because libertarianism is about self-ownership, non-aggression, private property rights. It's about peace. That's the principle. So, he's in the wrong, of course. Not just from an economic standpoint, maybe even more importantly from a principle. He's saying that he has none, at least in this regards. But this automation fear, man, I don't really understand that. It's again because people, well, I'll take it back. I do understand that. I take it back. Even if I say that, I really understand why people. It's because they've been led to believe that the economy is this fixed pie, and people are robots. Nobody makes adjustments. If a job gets eliminated, no new job is created, or on net maybe it's a lesser job, but they don't consider the fact that, well, even if on net like there's lesser jobs, say if like there's 10 million people, right, and that gets cut to 5 million people in that industry, he doesn't consider the numerous amounts of jobs from the, and again, that's just him just guessing, and it's economically illiterate. I have to mention that actually, but that's assuming that people just again don't make adjustments, and when people don't make adjustments, he's saying that if let's say in the trucking industry there's only 5 million more jobs because of automation, which I have no way of predicting that. Let's say they just keep cutting half from the 10 million people that he is acting like works right now. He doesn't mention, or he doesn't understand, and others don't understand, it seems, that in that innovation, other jobs, even in other industries, because that is so common, and the ideas that people are transporting goods, he doesn't seem to understand that other jobs are created because of that may not even be in that said industry alone. But just because people now have a more efficient way of transporting goods, a cheaper way, more common way because of it to transport goods, that means people again, they can dedicate their labor, they can dedicate their, brain power or whatever have you to other things, which creates other jobs due to that said innovation. That cannot go ignored. And to ignore it is completely and utterly economically illiterate.